Hi guys, welcome to UX1. Today we're talking about the UXR interviews and how you can prepare best to smash that interview. So the first thing they're definitely going to ask you is the UXR process, so the UX research process. And the good news is there's not one process, so you can choose from a selection. You can go into Google Images, you can go into blogs, and you'll find many different processes. And the reason is that there's no one defined way. So you choose one that is easy to memorize, and my advice is to memorize it as an acronym. So if you can remember the key words of each part of the process in your head, then when you're in an interview, it'll be easier for you just to say them out. And then you can start to explain them. So that's definitely going to come up. They're going to definitely ask you what your process is. And the way that you can work on that is practice each part of the process as visualizing it in your mind. So for example, discovery. So first you want to discover what the problem is. So think about what would you do when you're discovering the problem. We're going to look at what the research says, what the previous research report said, what information you can find out from your product manager, from the design team, like where is this project right now, what was happening with the project. So you can just think about what you would do, even if you've never worked in that environment. You need to imagine it if you've never worked in it, but if it's your first job. But you can start to imagine what would discovery phase be like. So you've got to sort of live it to try to understand it. So if you have never worked in UXR, just pretend that you have. So that's the sort of like storyboarding it in your mind, so that helps you memorize it. And it will help you to tell that story of the UX research process in your interview. The next thing that's going to come up in an interview is they're going to ask you to explain your methods. So what methods of research do you use? What UX research methods are you aware of? Which ones have you used? Which ones would you use? So there's two parts to that question. One is you need to mention lots of methods, and I'd say definitely mention interviews and focus groups, and they're going to ask you what types of data you want to collect, qualitative or quantitative, and then move on to other methods like A/B testing, tree testing, and even the apps that you're going to use. If you've never used an app, that's fine. Just mention the most popular ones. They're all very user-friendly, so it'll be easy to use them once you're in. You can, if you get stuck, you can watch a YouTube video. If, for example, if it's UserZoom or Optimizely, any of these apps, you can learn them very, very, very quickly. They're quite common sense based. They have good UX, user experience design, so you can really easily use that software to carry out your testing. Now, there's two parts of the testing, and I want to know about both of them. One is the user testing in the beginning of the stages of your research, i.e. discovering the problem. And then there's once the product's been built by developers, now you want to test it, i.e. usability testing. So let's go through both of them, user testing and usability testing. So there's the two types of testing that you do as a UX researcher, and you need to explain both of them and what your process is for both of them. So user testing first is one where you're trying to discover what the problem is, define red routes, i.e. prioritize which of these problems, let's say you discover 20 problems, which one of those are you going to actually start to research, i.e. carry out interviews, focus groups, ethnographic studies. You might go to a coffee shop and ask people, guerrilla testing, whatever method you use. Normally it's going to be honest, majority of the time it's going to be interviews. So interviews, what are you going to ask? Now if you have discovered there are 50 problems, you're not going to have time in a 30-40 minute interview to ask about all 50 problems. So you have to, what we call, define a red route, define the important ones that you want to carry out. So that's what you'd be saying in the interview actually, and then explaining that we'll be defining them as a team and agreeing which ones we want to research further. And then that's your user testing side. On the usability testing side, they're going to ask you about what methods would you use to test the product that you've made. So the MVP, the minimum viable product that you've built as a team, the developers now built something based on the problems you discovered in user research. they're building something now. When they build that product, you need to test it before it goes live to the world. So they call it beta phase and then the live phase. So beta is sort of a test before it goes out to the big wide world. That phase of usability testing is trying to see if what you built is fit for purpose. Is it going to do the job that it's meant to be doing? Is it solving the problem? For example, if you were fixing a checkout process, so purchasing something, adding it to basket, and then making the payment, and there was a problem with the design, i.e. it was too lengthy, or users didn't know where to click to add their card details. If it was a problem like that and you're now testing that, you want to test it with the users and make sure that they understand where, and they can, without having to think too much, they know exactly how to complete that checkout quickly and seamlessly. Now, if you're explaining that, to test that, what you would do is you would do a click test or a heat map, and what that software will do is tell you where they're clicking and how long it took them to complete the task. And a lot of this software is automated, so it'll tell you the time on task, how long it took them to complete that task. If you explain these things in the interview, it shows that you know the UXR process, you know the methods to use, and that's really what they're looking for. They want to know that you know how to do the job. They don't really care about your degrees and what courses you did. They want to know if this person starts today, can they do the job or not? And that's really what they're looking for. Now, in terms of the data, they're going to ask you about what types of data you collect and why you collect this specific data. Now, there's two main types of data: qualitative data and quantitative data. Now, these two types of data, they both have their benefits, the pros and cons. Quantitative data, the numbers, I remember it's quantity, numbers, that's all about how long it took them, how many times they tried, what the statistics on usage, where do they use it, how often do they use it, all these things related to numbers. Qualitative data is their feelings, so think of the heart. How do they feel? What do they say? I hate this product, I love this product, I'm frustrated by this product. Whatever they might say, that is qualitative, so it's quality data. They're both important. Arguably, qualitative data is more important, but you both need both of them, and you want to explain both of them. Now, where do you use which one? If it's a task where there was a problem with, let's say, the checkout process and it was taking them too long, then you want to measure the quantitative data. If it's about design and the overall feel of that new app design or website or software, then you want the qualitative data. Really depends, but you normally take both anyway. But qualitative will give you a real insight into how good the user experience is. Quantitative will tell you how it performs. So one is about what it does, and the other is why it does. So what is the qualitative data, and quantitative is what it does, how long it takes to complete that task. So I hope this will really help you with your interview. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and follow. And I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you. This is UXR.